Very, very hard to cope with life like this.
After working hard for several years to build his dream house, he was thrown out in an instant, losing belongings he and his family had spent years accumulating. The Finsac entrepreneur claims his house, which was valued at between $9 and $11 million, was offloaded by Finsac for just $3.5 million.
At the time when the house sold, they said that whole 11 point odd million. And they said they sold it for 3.5, and I still have a balance of 7 point something. Up to now, I don't know if I still owe that money or what happened. I don't know if I have a money in my hand now, if they will come to me for that money, because they say I owe it, and I don't know if it's still growing interest. Because every time we ask for an account, nobody won't give it to us.
Mr. Willis says he ended up being Finsacked because he took a revolving loan from the now defunct Eagle Commercial Bank. However, with the interest rates skyrocketing, he, like many others, found it difficult to keep a pace with the financial demands. Dealing with the emotional toll of Finsac hasn't been easy for many who were forced to start life all over again.
The victims of the Finsac crisis were Jamaicans from all walks of life, including individual investors, small businesses owners, workers, and taxpayers. Many Jamaicans lost their life savings, many families lost loved ones, families were left in financial ruin or were forced to close their businesses. The Finsac crisis also damaged the reputation of Jamaica's financial sector, leading to a decline in investor confidence and economic growth. Let's learn from the lessons of the Finsac crisis and take steps to prevent such a crisis from happening again. But it did not. Thank you.
To the Jamaican entrepreneurs, the black people in Jamaica who suffered so as a result of those of Finsac and making peace with God and the ancestors.
So I came into the party through Dr. Omar Davis because I knew him in the financial sector, where I had been like one of the leading corporate lawyers in Jamaica and very involved in financial engineering. And so when he was Minister of Finance, a lot of the things that required industry input, I was one of the representatives of the industry that he would deal with. I got to know him through that. And that's how I got into the PNP, really, through.
If you're looking at the screen right now, the man that you're looking at is the former finance minister, Dr. Omar Davies. And Omar Davies served as finance minister under P.J. Patterson's government. In the 90s, Jamaica faced the worst financial meltdown in our history. And it's like we didn't have a government, we didn't have a finance minister. Everything that happened to the Jamaican people during this time, it was so criminal. There had to be an inquiry. That inquiry cost billions of dollars, right? And guys, we have yet to see the result of that inquiry. We've yet to see the result of that inquiry. We also spoke about a woman who wrote a book. She's one of the victims of Finsac. She wrote a book about it called Too Black to Succeed. This woman is a teacher. Her husband was a businessman. They lived in the parish of Manchester in Mandeville. I encourage you all to read it. I'll show it to you shortly. But if you hear her story, guys, you would cry. There's another lady. This is one of the people who did up on the forefront. She was out there. I think she is like the president of they formed an organization. Yes, they formed an organization of people who are victims of Finsac, which I thought was a brilliant idea, but some people, they were just so broken. They felt like, there was no hope. They didn't feel like they were going to get, so they didn't bother they just went into grieving mode instead of, fighting. I don't know how it go with women. Some women, they're very strong going through. Guys, them are go strong up and them are go stick it out and all these things. As an example of what these guys did to the Jamaican people. If you were here last night, you would have heard how Mark Golding and Peter Bunting, the biggest beneficiaries of Finsac, heartless and cold and cruel, how they benefited from it, right? If you ever hear about DB and G, when I left the show last night, guys, I was thinking to myself and wondering if DB and G was there for these kinds of unscrupulous activities. Because right after they closed, they sold out to Scotia. These two, very unscrupulous. You were here last night, you heard Liz said that the people in the financial community, they call Peter Bunting a piranha. These people have no mercy. This is the man you just watched in the video. Man loses business and home during Finsac. One of the reasons why I don't want to show up any more of these stories on here is because when you look at that man's kids, his children, and you see how confused those kids look, and you see how physically disabled he is as a father who's supposed to protect and provide for his kids, the financial sector and destroyed lives. Why is it, Liz, that they were presented to the people as such a success, DB&G, such a success, Merchant Bank, Why is it that it was not said that, they benefited from the destruction and took part in and helped engineered the destruction? You know what I mean? Rather than talking about how successful they were because of it.
Yeah, very good question. No, you said something very important also earlier in your preamble. Mark Golding's father was not a rich person. No, he was an ordinary doctor in the British system, and he was part of the experimental polio vaccine, and he was paid. And he came here, and the experiment, he led the experiment of injecting the children here with the polio vaccine, and many persons got polio. So he was not a rich person, and Mark Golding not come from a rich background. Now, the Finsac situation, Bunting, Golding, and Derring, that established the bank. But the bank now became a killer. It was a piranha-like bank unleashed in Holocaust because of the financial dealings at the time, 14 years, between DB&G, chief financial personnel, Bunting and Golding, and Omar Davis, finance minister, and PJ Patterson. And all of the monies that in US dollars that were accumulated from the bonds, the government bonds that they bought, was rinsed in that bank. That bank became the chief. It couldn't really legally, but them almost use it more than how they should have used the central bank, which was the Bank of Jamaica. And so the fact of the matter is that they were allowed, because they never just became billionaires because of their dealings and the sweetheart deals, The agreement was that same plane, two government personnel had to get kickbacks. they had to get their share. Kickbacks is an extensive, and God bless you. And I'm sure all Finsac persons who are still alive and their families will forever be grateful to you for, because it's an essential part of our history that must be examined thoroughly in the public domain. But Dr. Phillips had to be stopped because that commission of inquiry will be too revealing.
So
but they made killings. They took, just remember you guys said, they took people's homes in exclusive areas. They took people's vehicle. The majority, the 90% of who they destroyed were black Jamaicans and whose banks were going. And Bunting wanted to own it all. He wanted a monopoly banking ownership. He wanted to be. So he was the one, Angoli was the one who advised Omar Davis, then finance minister, to carry the interest rate through the roof and to remove to such a point where savers in the other banks has lost interest on their savings up to this day. You're not getting 0.005 interest on your savings and all them things there.
So look here. The fact that they dissolved this bank when I think it was around the time when. Make sure that you check out the 2-part series of Finsac, parts 1 and 2, live broadcast to hear the full conversation about Finsac. It is the worst economic meltdown in the history of Jamaica and the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor and working class Jamaicans. Make sure you are keeping it locked here to Jamaica Politics Uncovered for all your political news, reviews, and updates.